From The National, this is Trending Middle East. I'm Yasmin Al-Taji. It's Friday, September 26th. Here are today's headlines.
أتحدث إليكم اليوم بعد مرور قرابة عامين.
Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas addressed the UN via video on Thursday. That's as the U.S. considers whether to try to halt Israeli annexation of the West Bank. Abbas is president of the Palestinian Authority. His address came 3 days after France led a summit in which a series of Western nations recognized Palestinian statehood. The National's Mohamad Harisi reports from the UN in New York.
The Palestinian delegation was denied visas by the U.S. administration. He wasn't there and the podium was empty, but his speech was broadcasted on 2 giant screens. His speech was mainly focused on 2 main priorities, ending the war in Gaza and ensuring that there will always be a Palestinian state. But at the same time, it was a very symbolic speech, seeing the president of the Palestinian Authority denied visa and delivering his words on a giant screen. And once the speech was over, there was an applause for 30 seconds. And the Palestinian envoy was greeting delegates, and we saw him hugging some of the heads of states and officials in the room.
Abbas described Gaza as being subjected to, quote, genocide, destruction, starvation, and displacement, unquote. He also warned that Israel was pressing ahead with settlement expansion in the occupied West Bank.
On Friday morning, the first speech at the General Assembly will be delivered by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. During his speech, he is expected to double down on his rejection for a Palestinian state and maybe give a hint, some kind of a hint or a feedback on the U.S. President Donald Trump's 21-point plan delivered to Arab leaders and officials, and with the aim of ending the war in Gaza and conflicts across the region.
More than 200 journalists have been killed in Gaza since the start of Israel's war on the Palestinian enclave. The National conducted an in-depth investigation of 219 killings in 2 years of war. Analysis points to Israel's deliberate targeting of reporters to suppress the truth about its assault on the enclave. The National's Fadah Jassem reports.
We also looked into the claims by Israel that many of those journalists they killed were militants or had terrorist links. Despite there being, of course, no independent evidence to back these claims, what we found from the total number of journalists in our analysis, which was 219, is that at least 99 of those were labelled by Israel as having links to militants or terrorists. And within that 99 number, 38 of them were explicitly called by Israel as being Hamas operatives. And again, we dug deep, and when we found that within that number of 38, that many of them actually had worked for Al Jazeera or had worked for other local Palestinian outlets like Al-Quds. So again, these are smears and labels, but again, no proof to back up these claims by Israel.
Since October 2023, journalists in Gaza have faced relentless campaigns to discredit and to endanger them. Israeli officials have been accused of smears claiming journalists are terrorists or work on behalf of terror organizations. Israel has used this basis to justify attacks and suggest media workers are legitimate targets.
A lot of these journalists were being killed in or around hospitals, working in media tents or media hubs that had been set up primarily because a lot of the hospitals obviously have electricity or have internet access. And journalists, so what we also found is that at least 50 of the journalists killed were women. And I use the word at least, and we use it throughout our report again and again, because there are many people within those databases where the information was unavailable or could not be corroborated by eyewitnesses or reporting from the ground. And that's why we ended up with the 219 figure. The actual figure could be much higher, and we believe it's higher, but at this stage we've not been able to corroborate those killings further.
U.S. President Donald Trump will soon meet Syrian leader Ahmad Al Shara. That's according to a Syrian official who spoke on Thursday. The announcement comes amid widespread expectations of an American-brokered security deal between the post-Bashar al-Assad authorities and Israel. The National's Khaled Yacoub Oweis reports.
Attacks by Israel on targets belonging to Hezbollah and other pro-Iranian groups in Syria in the last 2 years of Assad's rule contributed significantly to the weakening of the former regime and to the success of an 11-day offensive led by the current Syrian president Ahmad Al Shara, which removed Assad. Since then, Mr. Al Shara has been rising on the global stage, a process that was boosted by his meeting with American President Donald Trump in Riyadh in May. However, the United States is expecting Mr. Al Shara to join its anti-terrorism efforts and also to sign the Abraham Accords with Israel. In recent weeks, both Syrian and Israeli officials have been hinting that this security deal is imminent. It aims to limit the Syrian military presence in southern Syria near the Golan Heights, but also to stop Israeli incursions into Syrian territory and return mostly to a 1974 armistice line. Mr. Al Shara has shown himself to be a pragmatist, despite his religious background.
A deal would be the most important diplomatic development in Syria since the December ouster of former President Bashar al-Assad. Israel in the last 2 years has struck hundreds of Syrian military targets belonging both to the old regime and the new authorities. That's all for this morning's headlines. You can get these stories and follow more of our coverage at thenationalnews.com. Yasmin Al-Taji, The National.